number of you know me. I'm Christina. Liam, you've obviously met. And now Marie, which is nice, and obviously Nick's my husband, and you know that. We're going to cover some things today to do with one of the things that everybody's been actually asking about, which is how to bring people to a place where they're happy with what you're doing into a path of mutual discovery. In other words, you're leading people down the path of mutual discovery to a point where they're comfortable with what you're offering them, and you're not strong-arming them, but you are actually sort of bringing them to a certain point. And what happens when we tend to get in a business like this? Some of us are over-eager, some of us are under-eager, but oftentimes we miss the mark with people, particularly if we're not paying attention to some of the details. So we're going to start with the end in mind, and the end starts at the beginning. I mean, how many of you have done maze puzzles, and the ones that you do in the books where you've got the diagrams, you've got to work your way through a maze into that sort of thing? How many of you done that?
Yeah, no.
Well, it's so excited. You start. Where do you start on the maze? How do you do a maze, generally speaking? If you do a maze, do you go from the top? Do you go? What do you do with it?
I often go from the middle outwards, actually.
Oh, that's nice. I like that's quite abstract.
Yeah.
How many of you start at the end? Any of you start at the end, or you all start at the beginning? You start at the end. Oh, very good, Robin. And you start at the end. Okay. All right. Well, that's interesting. I quite like that. I like the abstractness of going both ways, but to go then to the middle.
Yeah.
Yay!
That's right. There's many different ways to do it.
There's lots of ways to do it. But a lot of times when you do it, if you start from the end, you eventually can make your way back to a puzzle. And a lot of people, if they've got the end in mind, can make their way back. And that's the idea of the analogy, is that actually you need to start with the end of where you want to take somebody and what the actual conclusion is, your objective, where you're taking something, that end point. And I feel that when people are working in an industry where they've got to work with people in relationships, they've got to actually have where they want somebody to be at the end in mind, okay? They've got to have an idea of where that's going to end up, what sort of objections, hurdles, things they've got to get over whilst taking those people down that path of mutual discovery. Now, a lot of people use and bandy around expressions like the law of attraction and everything else, but we are the embodiment of who we are. And what we project out is what we offer to other people. So when we're communicating with people, we are actually, we're putting out something, but we're also attracting something back. And 9 times out of 10, we'll attract people that are like us at a point in time, or in some sort of resonance with us, or they have some crossovers with us. And even if you don't understand the law of resonance, you'll be bringing people towards you. And you can actually be out of alignment with a variety of things and bring in all of the wrong people or nobody at all, okay? Which is quite interesting. Now, some of you have been more seasoned in inviting people, so you'll be familiar with what I'm talking about. Now, those of you who know what that's like, where you have a glut of people come towards you, they're all talking to you and everything's going dandy, and then you have other times when it's flat and nobody talks to you, or worse still, you have a glut of people that maybe are aggressive or not pleasant or something because of something in your life. Hands up if anybody's had experiences like that. I have, lots of times. Lots of times, in fact. I can have times when I'm working on a project and everybody that I actually cross over with, they've actually got that crossover point with me where that project or that idea or that embodiment or whatever I'm working on is actually crossing over with that person, okay? And I always find that quite interesting. I can have other times when I shouldn't be connecting with anybody, because I'm older and wiser in that way. I won't have days where I'll put myself out there, because what I draw back may be not what I want to draw back into my world, okay? I might be too impatient or angry or putting out the wrong vibes, and invariably I get something like that back coming at me, okay? So why do I cover that? Because a lot of you here won't always appreciate that. You'll be popping out messages to people, you'll be chatting with people, and you wonder why you're getting certain responses back, or you wonder why certain things are happening to you. I was talking to Daz earlier in the week, I was talking to Gareth about bringing in people and everything else, and I was very aware of that quality. I was also talking to Abdullah, where Abdullah's actually fasting at the moment, which is incredibly brave, and he's actually weakened in his energy, and it's harder for him to draw energy towards him, people, because we're all energetic, okay? So I like to cover that because I just want you to percolate on that. I don't want you to really think deeply about it. If you're not like myself and you haven't worked in an industry sector that works around that, it'll be a new idea. So let it percolate, but you will have observed it even if you don't understand it, okay? And parts of your personality will definitely cross over with other people. We can always find, you always find when you've got an affinity with somebody that the resonant quality of the conversation shows itself in that conversation. I had a conversation with Marie earlier, and she has some lovely quality things around her environment that mean something to her, and we were having a conversation about that, and some of our interests in around spiritual qualities of things, and the same respectively with Vivian. And that's important because we're actually connecting on a level that we appreciate one another and we're communicating. Now, when you're talking to people and you're introducing it into the realm of the zealous, if you like, or the embodiment of zealous, you are only bringing them into a culture, an idea, a principle, and something that you're drawing them towards, that you believe in and that you feel in your heart is worthy of showing them that opportunity, okay? And if you don't feel that and you're approaching strangers and you're not feeling that, then you're not approaching them with the right, if you like, way of thinking, okay? Last night we had with Karen, we had a chap called Carl on, okay, who's in Dubai, and he's a very famous grappler type. He's what is he named? MMA, isn't he? Yeah, and he got a lovely energy about him. He's got all sorts of wonderful things going on in his life. And Karen was over the moon because she drew to her a guy that's really quite successful, quite famous, but also a very nice chap. And we were all going, yay, that was fun, yay, that was fun, because it's about belief, about whom you're talking to. So the second principle is about belief and conviction, how your energy and enthusiasm gets delivered when you're approaching people. When you're approaching people, a lot of people approach them very flatly, very crudely. They perhaps, when they're initiating a conversation of any description, they might ask people, how are you doing in the pandemic? How is everything affecting you? Which is a common sense thing to ask people, but they may not be asking them with an intent of getting into a conversation or taking it to the next steps, okay? I think a lot of people here pay a lot of attention to people, but you've also got to guide it through that belief, conviction, your energy, enthusiasm, and what you're putting out, okay? And what you believe is what you draw towards you. Now I'm going to let open the floor up a little bit for Liam to explain a little bit about how your mindset works with your relation to people. And I think he's got a little bit to cover there. And he's going to cover how those connections happen and then hand the floor back to myself. Nick, I might bring you in later for some of the tags and yes tags and bits and bobs on that.
Okay, well, thank you, Christina. Thank you for that lovely introduction, and obviously thank you all for listening. I mean, today, Christina, Nick, and myself will all be sharing different points that will hopefully help you in your business and help you develop this opportunity, okay? Because even though we're all in this together, we're not on our own. It is your business. So a couple of things. Mindset is very important. And I mean, I know that's kind of obvious to start with, but that is where I'm going to make a start, because a lot of people don't realize when it comes to building this business, growing this business, and when it comes to closing, and by that I mean getting an individual to make some form of commitment to be involved in this, whether it's to come on Zoom, whether it's to purchase the membership, try some products, etc. and so forth. You have to get commitment out of people, and so you have to approach that with the correct mindset. What a lot of people don't realize, you can be doing the same activities every day within the business. You can be contacting people, you can be putting up posts, you can be adding to the groups, you can be doing various things, and some days it'll work and some days it won't work, and a lot of people just don't know why. So I'm just starting it with a very, very simple premise, and I know it's a little bit elementary for some and it's new to others, but bear with me because we'll take this one step at a time, okay? So a lot of people don't realize that one of those altering factors is mindset. It is the mindset with which you approach the task in front of you. Now, this isn't necessarily unique to the Zealous business. This applies in all areas of life, and a lot of people don't notice it. So one of the important things is conviction. It is, and by conviction I don't mean a criminal conviction, guys. I mean belief, okay? I mean belief, faith, and power of emotion, okay? Now, one of the things is that a lot of people, if you've ever had a conversation with someone, if you think back to a conversation you had with someone, you know, a year ago, 6 months ago, you might not remember all the details of what they said. You know, you might not remember what they were wearing as such. Some of you might, and that's fine. I mean, personally, I remember a lot of what people say, but in general, you remember how that person made you feel. You don't necessarily remember how you felt in that situation. If I were to ask any of you now to think back to a time when you had a lovely, fun conversation where it just flowed naturally. You had a lot of laughs, you had a great time, and you left, dealing with that person with a smile on your face. You could think of one. But if I also asked you to remember a conversation with a person where it was very awkward, maybe there was a bit of pressure there, you didn't really like it, you didn't feel comfortable, or something was wrong in some way, you could remember it. And if you're thinking of that in your minds, for a lot of people, for most people, the feeling will come first. So when I say that, the first thing that'll pop in, oh yeah, I felt that way. And then it was with such and such individual, okay? And what happens is that applies to our zealous business, and that comes from mindset. If you really believe this is a great opportunity, it's something that can change your life, it's something that can change other people's lives, all of these wonderful things, if you really believe that your goals, your personal goals are on the other end of this, be that retirement, financial security, better health, peace of mind, all the things we talk about, people will feel that. If you were to call up a friend of yours and try and explain this now in the most technical way, there's these patented products, nobody can copy them, there's this science, there's that science, and all the rest of it, they might take some of it on board, but they wouldn't do as well. If you were to call up a friend of yours right now and say, hey, something really amazing is happening, I've got to tell you all about it, and then hang up, they might think, well, man, this guy's crazy. Maybe I should call him back, because they know there's something there. There's a feeling. So and it's not a blind feeling. It's not hyping things up. It's not exaggerating things or falsifying things. Nothing of that nature. It's just a genuine belief. And what people don't realize is that energy transfers from one person to another. Okay, so this is the importance of mindset. Now, to digress slightly from this, I work with a lot of professional athletes in quite a number of different sports, including a number of combat-based sports, but other ones as well. And one of the things I've observed that's very, very interesting with these people is you can often tell who's going to win before the actual event has happened. So most types of events have maybe they have a weigh-in, or they have an opening to the game, or they have something going on, and you can actually tell who is going to win. And a lot of this comes down to mindset. All of these people are on an elite level. They're all as fit as each other. They've all trained hard. Whichever sport this is now, you can think of your favorite sport. They've all trained hard. They've all worked hard. A lot of them to be at that level have been training for years, to be at that elite basis. And yeah, if you've ever noticed, especially when you've been around it up close as I have, I know some people here have, you can tell who's going to do well versus who's not going to do well a substantial portion of the time, just by looking at the people before the competition when they stood together. Now, the reason for that is you can actually tell the mindset, because the mindset shows in the body, in the person's body, and how they're stood, in their posture. It shows in their facial expressions, how relaxed or unrelaxed they seem. It shows in a myriad of ways, and we can pick up on it because we all get gut feelings, and oftentimes the gut feelings are right. And a gut feeling is essentially sensing or picking up on another person's emotional state. It's picking up on what's inside the person, not what they want you to see. Because often we all put our best feet forward. We often try and present ourselves well, but really, when you're dealing with another person, you can get a vibe of what's really going on. Okay, so approaching your zealous business with the correct mindset is essential. Okay, and now what people don't realize as well with mindset is what you think actually becomes true. You actually cause it in many cases to become true. Again, I'm going to use the athletes as an example just because they're such a brilliant example. There's been so many times, I was working with a professional boxer in this case who was going for an absolutely major competition, world title, very, very important. His career was on the line, biggest event of his life, a lot of money. And he said to me, I interviewed him actually after the fight, which he didn't win, okay? And I said to him, what do you think some of the reasons were? Both of you were fit, both of you were the same weight, both of you have been training for years, etc. And he said, well, the thing is, he said, all the pressure was on the other guy because it was, it was his belt, because for those of you who don't know boxing, you win belts and everything. But he said it was his belt. He said, it wasn't mine. And then look what happened. Whereas, to give you a different example, I recently, a couple of years back, had the privilege of working with a particular athlete known as Big Z, who's a Lithuanian strongman. It's not a sport I know a lot about. To be honest, I was booked for the job. I've never really been into weights. I've never really been into one of those people that wants to be you know, big and strong and all that sort of thing. I like fitness, but not in that context. So I was listening to this guy speak at the event I was hired for. He's one of the greatest strongmen, weightlifters of all time ever, who's ever lived. And I was sort of thinking, well, all these guys are strong. All these guys can lift, you know, heavy objects, shall we say. What separates him from the rest? I actually asked him, because he's a friendly guy, he's massive. I'm talking 28 stone, you know, I mean, he's like up here. But I had a chat with him, very friendly guy. And I said to him, you know, what is it that separates you? And he said, it's belief. He said, I know when I go in there that I'm the absolute strongest. He said, I know for a fact, he said, I don't have doubts. I don't have niggly worries. I don't have these things. Obviously, he experiences these things because he's human. But he's saying, by the time I get to competition, I just know that I'm going to win. And then you know, you look at his record and it speaks for itself. And he says, the only times I've gone in there with my mindset off or not feeling 100%, or I haven't fully believed in myself, I've lost. I've come second or third. I think a few times he's come 10th or 12th or, you know, much further down. So this just illustrates the point. And it's the same with anything. If we bring this down to earth and how it applies day to day, think about things in your lives, whether it's passing a driving test, doing an exam, going to a job interview, going on a date, you know, something that we place a degree of importance on. If you notice that what you say to yourself before you do that has an impact on how well you do, technically speaking, because a lot of people, we focus on what we say to others, but we don't focus on what we say to ourselves, our own internal dialogue. And what you'll actually find is if we're saying to ourselves, and it's not, you don't have to take my word for it, you can research everything I'm saying till your heart's content, it's all out there, it's all scientifically documented. But what we say when we talk to ourselves actually generates results. You see, if you're in a situation where you're constantly saying to yourself, oh, I'm crap at this and I can't do that, and oh my God, this is going to be really difficult before you do something. Now, we all do it, by the way, okay? But what you'll actually find is you'll actually, first of all, you'll actually close down your own mind. You will actually cause your body to be stressed, you'll increase your adrenaline, you'll increase your heart rate. I mean, how many of you have experienced a time when you're going for something very important, you've psyched yourself up? It's normal to be nervous now, but I'm talking when you psych yourself up to such a degree that you get in there, you can't actually think through what you're doing, because what you're saying to yourself is actually causing physiological, chemical responses, which people don't realize. So in a lot of cases, and this can be positive as well as negative. And obviously outside circumstances happen. Yes, they do. They happen to all of us. But the only thing we actually have control over is how we respond to what happens to us. We can't control what happens to us. We can control how we respond to it, you see. So this is very, very important with the business. Again, with Zealous, a lot of people here and a lot of the rest of our team who are, I guess, busy with Mayday or whatever, you know, experience rejection because that's part of the game, you know, I mean, it's part of life anyway, but we all experience rejection and we take it personally. We take it to the fact that, you know, these people have rejected us, that they don't like us, that they've seen something wrong with us and all of this type of thing. And what you'll actually find with that is in a lot of instances, if we take a look at ourselves, we're actually bringing ourselves into it where it's not necessary. It's actually triggering something that our mother and father used to say to us when we were growing up, or something that's something that doesn't exist in the now. It exists, and it's often got nothing to do with us. Somebody might turn us down because, you know, it's not the right time for them, because they're having a bad day, because their partner just had a go at them this morning, you know, or whatever. So it's often not to do with us, but we often respond to it in a way that actually makes the situation worse. So mastering our own emotions, I'm not saying you should walk around feeling happy all the time, because that's not possible. I mean, we all feel these negative feelings, but it's what we do with them. And in a lot of cases, people allow these negative feelings to sort of expand and grow and actually become quite self-destructive to our businesses and to other elements of our lives. And I don't think people realize the control that we have over ourselves and the power that we have over ourselves, and people often overlook that. So these are some things that hopefully will be of some benefit, and I know they are bullet points. I mean, I've rattled through them quite quick, but it's just to get you thinking of things from a different perspective. I'm not saying do this or do that. I'm saying think of it from a different point of view, okay? And conviction is one of the most powerful ones. When we're approaching people, obviously approaching the right people, obviously approaching people that are open-minded, ambitious, willing to work, people that are friendly. I mean, I'm not being funny, but if you're approaching people that don't look friendly or whatever, you're not going to have a good experience. So there's certain common sense, I know, common sense things, but the mindset is such an important thing. And what we say to ourselves in many, many cases actually comes true, guys. Okay. So these are just a few things to think about. I'm going to hand it back to Christina now, but I hope there's been a little bit of value there for your businesses. Okay, guys. So thank you for listening. And next,
Yeah, go on, Nick.
Well, during that conversation, Robin put in the chat about let the haters hate. And that's a really good example of a mindset. Because if you believe there are haters, you will experience haters. If you don't believe there are haters, you won't experience them. During, I don't know, all the time we've been working on social media, promoting our events business and everything else, I've heard all sorts of people talking about haters. I haven't met one yet. So where are they unless they're in here? But if you believe they're in here, then you're going to meet loads of them.
Well, I'm going to explain that. I'm going to expand on that because we're going to share it between us. But what happened when we were younger, we used to get involved in dramas. I'm going to call them dramas, Robin. I'm going to call them dramas everybody else because I know none of us are perfect, all right? Because we're not. It would be lovely to think we are. And we used to get involved in people's dramas and then we used to think, oh my gosh, they're aggressive, oh, they're nasty, oh, what's wrong with them? Why are they on to us? Why are they blah, blah, blah? Not realizing that we were fueling that thought within ourselves, quite literally. We didn't know that. We were completely ignorant to it. But, I would carry all of those things forward and think that I was being bullied, I'd become a victim, and I'd be in that stereotypical place that we find ourselves in. Not realizing that I had the power to control the circumstances. I can actually talk about that because Liam's led that beautifully in. I think we all need to take control of our relationships. We are in a relationship business. In fact, as human beings, we're in relationships and in relation to everything all the time, okay? And so when we want to succeed at something that is a relationship and team building exercise, which this is, okay, then we need to bring in some of these good things that we've learned, okay? The older we are, the longer in the tooth. No joking aside, I just had a wisdom tooth come through a little bit more. It's like, wow, okay. The longer we get in the tooth, joking aside, the more we get to realize that perhaps it's a lot to do with us and a little bit to do with them. And if they come halfway, we've got a good relationship, okay? If we're not looking for the right people demographically, whom are interested in wellness, who have a positive, open-minded attitude, who perhaps using the terminologies people use today, coachable, burning desire, willing to work, qualities, they're never going to do anything anyway. You'll be beating your heads against a brick wall, okay? If they're a little bit off the wall or they're taking drugs or they're doing something out there that's in excess, they're not going to be interested in something that's got to do with wellness and mindset and if you like a culture. They're never going to be part of your team. And you've got to work with them. So your first quality is know yourself, to thine own self be true. Second quality is use your mindset to draw towards you better quality people, okay? And therefore you will have people you want to work with who respect you, who treat you well, who don't have all these dramas in their lives because they don't really want it. They want to do something more positively. Yes, definitely over enthusiasm can lead to overselling and not recognizing the point. That's a very interesting point. Yes, when people over exude, they put people off. The Americans are extremely good at this. If you are quietly explaining to people the benefits of something, talking to the person at hand about the aspects that they appreciate. Don't talk to them about the other things they don't want to know. If somebody lives in Tenerife and you're talking about their artwork and their beautiful room and the fact they do Tai Chi, they're not interested in somebody pulverizing somebody down the road and beating their heads up because they're a peaceful person. So anything you bring into somebody's realm, you think about it. Okay? So Gareth, forgive me, but when you're working with your people, always talk to the people. You're a very intelligent gentleman. Always talk to the people once you've got their interest at the point that they're at and bring them in, okay? Always pick out something that you like about them, something that you've noticed about their background, and talk for a little bit about it and then go back to the business. That way you'll find you'll have a much, much nicer experience, okay? And even if the timing is not right now, the timing will be right when you pick them back up, and they do it. Nick has that lovely gentleman you all met, Gavin, who's very, very new to us, okay? Whom he knows as our Asda driver. He's not an Asda driver. He's actually a very well-qualified engineer who actually, in this pandemic, lost the job as an engineer and had to take an ASDA driving job. And we actually spoke to him on the one occasion he came here, and he was talking about how he wanted to have a better life and more fulfilled, blah, blah, blah. Lovely conversation, very easy conversation. It was in the physical realm, and it was very much, that's very interesting. I know how you feel. We actually felt the same way because our media company took a nosedive. We know what it's like to not be doing the thing you really think you were doing and that sort of thing. And he actually stayed around us, and we've been talking to him on and off in between, because we have a rapport, and Nick has a rapport with him because Nick's background is an engineer, okay? Nick's background is very much in the engineering realm. And so these guys have this wonderful, if you like, conversation just going forwards. So Gareth, that's a powerful tool for you because you're very, you personally, I think, can hold and converse and keep conversations going with people, okay? Some of the people that I have around me, I've spoken to for ages. I talk to people for a long time. I don't go around upsetting people. I don't try and strong arm people or anything crazy like that. And even if I am like Abdullah's our Terminator, and I go back to them over and over again, I'll go back to them and ask them, how's life, how are things going, blah, 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 common sense things, okay? Now, I've got, if one person doesn't like you, I worry, yeah, absolutely. If somebody doesn't like you and you have got some sort of animosity, usually because they're another MLM person banging on about something that they have thought that you might like, that you don't even know them, but they're still doing it anyway, then, you know, there are plenty more people and you need to move on. And that's a really good point, okay? Nobody has to like you, and not everybody's going to like you, okay? They are going to take umbrage about something about you 9 times out of 10, and you just need to leave them alone. But it's a great point, Gareth. You just need to move on, okay? Yeah, Liam, I'll let you do that in a minute. That's cool. And I like that. There's some great points coming in there. So I don't want to digress too much because I will, and that's one of my weaknesses. So we don't want to digress. Now, it's all about it. This model works. Okay, in fact, this particular model is has marvelous timing, incredible finances, very, very ethical owners with a very ethical product. It's not in question whether this is going to work, it's how you're working it and how you're going to work it. Now, what's nice about Zealous is not we have a training system, excuse me, my voice, but you can build it the way you want to do it. You can do that. It is your own business, but you're not on your own, okay? And for those who are newer to us, that's fine. Daz has his way of doing it. Daz is he's enigmatic. He has a quality of a little bit of charisma, and people are drawn to him. And he walks through Leicester to explain all sorts of things he's gone through in his life and all sorts of lessons. He reads copious books on mental well-being, and he shares it with people. Now that's his way of doing it. And that's a wonderful way of doing it, because the people that get drawn to Daz are very interested in why he's sharing that and who he is, and why would this person be trying to share something because he can broadcast. And he gets all sorts of amazing people come towards him. Other people may be doing it a different way, but what I'm trying to say is you can do it your way, but you need to do it in a way that gets you the results that you want at the end. So now, assuming you've got some interested people, maybe they're on social media and you've been talking to them, maybe they're old friends that you're trying to get some attention with, maybe they're people around you that you're trying to establish a rapport with, yeah? And note the word rapport. Rapport means that it goes back and forth. If they're not talking to you and they're not actually speaking with you and you're not taking an interest in their life and you're not asking them any of the questions about their lives, you won't build a relationship, and therefore you will never get them involved in a team building exercise like this, okay? So number 1 rule is you're making friends, okay? Number 2 rule is they've got to trust and like you, okay? Try not to show them the guns too soon. And look at these people, what are they like? They're no guns, no knives, no, okay. But seriously, you need to get them to like and trust and everything else with you. Build a rapport. Okay. That might sound really obvious, but it's more important. You need to understand that once they're involved in this business, there's a whole training system behind it. There's all sorts of people that they can relate to. There's all sorts of opportunities for them to further that. And I don't want to get too into the plug-in of the system at the moment, but I will in a minute. If you're having trouble with your attitude, the very thing that Liam spoke about, attitude is the way you think, then try and find a way that you find peace with yourself. If you meditate or you read books, or you listen to audios, preferably positive ones, if you like positive music, if you need to read biographies, find a way of doing that first and then go into your zone of inviting people. If you're only going to spend 1 or 2 hours a day on it and you're going to run some numbers, you're going to talk to some people, and it's all going to be in the ether zone, then you've got to have a really good attitude before you get going to talk to people. Otherwise, you're never going to be talking to them in the right context, okay? Be honest, be open. If they're not interested, yeah, move on, leave them alone, come back. Now, Karen, who a number of you know, Pago, is very, very good at keeping in contact with people and coming back to them when they've said their timing is correct. So she'll make a little note of what they were interested in, because actually that's her job as a PA. She's very, very efficient. And then she'll go back to the people when they said their timing is the correct timing. And people tell you what they do actually mean the most of the time if you've got a good rapport with them. So if somebody does say, I'm not interested right now, life is really, really awful, you know, I'm having some really serious problems, make sure you make a note of that and ask them, when do you think these things will actually pass? I'm talking to a lady called Pooja. You would have seen her on these Zooms in the recent, literally in the last couple of sessions. And her timing is essential with her. She's got 2 small children, one 1-year-old, okay, and one 7-year-old, isn't it? Because I've just asked her, and her husband, and the one's sick, and she's had all sorts of crazy things go on in her life, and she's talking to me about timing, yeah, and I'm saying she loves it. She actually enjoys what we presented, but she needs to know that I'm okay, with not pushing her towards when she's ready. Does that make sense? Okay, the Excel spreadsheet, put it in a Canva, absolutely, Karen, absolutely. So, you know, you want to talk to people initially. Once you've broken the ice with them and you've spoken to them, you want to find out what they want in life, where they want to take their life, where are they going with that. Your first and paramount question, if you're going to ask any question, is what do you want to do in life? What's the thing that motivates you in the morning? Yeah, it might not be money, by the way. That comes as a shock to a lot of people. Not everybody wants money. Some people want recognition, some people want to be loved, some people want to be a part of a community, some people want to be heard and have something out there. Other people want to have, some people want to have retirement and money and wealth. But you actually find the ones who think they're going after wealth don't want to go the long haul in anything. Yeah, does that make sense? And we're not looking for network marketers, we're looking for business people, guys. I know that sounds really stupid, and I know it's not on my notes. We're actually looking for people to build a business model. If they're in a business model, they're going to be collaborative, they're going to be community orientated, and they're going to work together, generally speaking. If they're a network marketer, cliche MLM person, they're going to thrust things at people all day long in their inboxes about stuff that people are not at all interested in. I got one about, she's thrusting me about sugar. She's talking, she doesn't know anything about me. She doesn't know that I've taught all sorts of things. I understand how the body works and the mechanisms and 101 other things. And this woman's just banging on at me like this. And it's like, well, if I were interested, you've definitely killed it for me, because, you know, you just got the guts, boom. And nobody likes that, okay? So you're not looking for people like that. You're looking for people to get involved. Now, I know I'm teaching you a little bit to suck eggs, and I'm not trying to do that. I'm just trying to emphasize some key points, yeah? Now, so we got something interesting. Okay, I'm cool with that. We said that we're going to teach you how to get people interested, then how to close people, which is not such a great word. What does closing mean? I'm going to hand this over to Nick shortly, but what closing actually means is you've got people piqued, you've got the interest, you've got to come along to a Zoom. You haven't told them too much, because if you tell people too much, they will prejudge what you're talking about, okay? We've all had life experiences, we all pigeonhole. That's the way the mind works anyway. It always wants to put it in this box, and in this box, and in this box. But you've got them down, you've answered a couple of questions, you've made them feel comfortable, you've got them along, secret squirrel, absolutely, and you've got them along to a meeting, they've listened to part of it. If they come off the call, great, let them go, all right, that's fine. If they've listened to a point, they want to ask some questions, you've been pleasant enough to explain it. I always ask people to be patient. That is a quality that they would need. And then you take it to the next steps. You take them to the next meeting and the next meeting. And if they've not made a commitment, and most people do not make a commitment, you lead them into a situation where they're comfortable. They've had some more questions answered. They've learned a bit about the science. They've seen a couple more videos and made a couple more people perhaps they'd like. Yeah. You're not looking to get people to sign anything. You're not looking to get anybody to sort of grab at anything, because the minute you do that, the minute you're grabbing at them, they're pulling away from you. Okay. The best people you'll have will come in. They'll make an educated, and I do mean an educated, reasonable response towards things. They'll ask questions, they'll have reservations, they may even give you a bit of a hard time initially, because they actually are looking at it because they want to do it. Okay. I remember when Gareth sat there, he had all sorts of things happening. He sat there thinking, I like this, but I'm not sure. But yes. but in a nice way, because that's his prerogative to look into it. Okay, so we got them that far. But when we get to the stage where I see most of you get to, we do these little group chats that we have and we've learned to do so we can help you guide your people in. And that's not to de-edify you, that's to edify you, that's to make the people feel that they're in a reasonable situation with reasonable people. Yeah. You may find that you have gotten them to a certain point, and I do this all the time because I work with a lot of you, and you haven't actually picked up on the things that would help you to guide them along to the next steps. So those little things, you haven't given them options of what we call the 2 yes tags. Would you like to do this, or would you like to do that? And Nick's better explaining this for me, so I'm going to get into the explain a little bit in a minute. You should be also be thinking about how would you be acting when you're talking to these people if you were, and I'm going to use the old cliches of a bronze, a silver, a gold, or a ruby, okay? How would you be responding if your business was that big? You would be trying to grab at them. You'd be quite comfortable with the option. You'd be talking to them about the successes and the people you're working with. You'd have a whole different attitude. So all the time, a lot of this is about how you feel, okay? It really is, okay? You're not trying to cram in your DMO, and I know we all use that word now, the daily mode of operation, into those 2 hours to make it happen. You're selectively working through people whom you feel are the right people with the right responses, with the right engagement. And if somebody starts talking to you, you stay with that person. You don't switch to some other individual and try and run your numbers because you've got to hit 100 people a day or something like that. You get to that person and you follow them through to the end, okay? And if that's all you do in that day, that's the best use of your time. Trust me, some of the best people are going to be the people who ask you lots of questions, and you've got to spend a bit of time with them and everything else, okay? And so I know that you do a lot of these things, but you've got to pull them all together and you've got to focus them all forwards. Now, Daz kindly asked, he was one of the people I talked about closing and wanted to know more. Gareth was another one. I know a number of others would like to know how to do that. So I'm going to hand it over to Nick. I'm just going to check my notes because I've come off another Zoom. I've been on Zooms all day, so forgive me today because I'm just checking myself. Oh, yes. And if somebody doesn't want something bad enough and they're not coming halfway with you, there is an old story about a dog on a nail, and I'm sure a number of you have heard it, about the fact that the dog was crying all day, and he was crying all day, and this dog kept yowling and yowling and yowling, and the owner went over to have a look, and it turns out the dog's on a nail on his little chin here, and he hasn't moved because he hasn't been bothered enough to move off the nail to get away from the pain, okay? Some people will give you a run for your money. They may not want things bad enough. You might not want things bad enough, but they might not want things bad enough. If they don't want it, leave them alone and move on, okay? You know, that's important. I know moving on sounds like, it sounds cliche, like I'm just saying move on. I'm saying just leave people alone and move on to people who want to do something, okay? So that they can make an intelligent decision with the full information and move to the next steps. Now, Nick, I'm going to get you to cover rejection. And I think I'm going to get you to cover a little bit about how you get to the next steps. You've taken them down the path of mutual discovery. I want to take you from the halfway mark, they're having a conversation, into the next stages and what they do next, if you'd be so kind, please. Because that's more your forte, definitely.
Okay, well, the first thing about it is that rejection isn't personal, not unless you make it personal. So if you make it a drama, it will be personal. But other than that, it isn't personal. Why is it not personal? Because it's not about you. You're not the business. The business opportunity is bigger than you. The business opportunity is global. The business opportunity actually belongs to somebody else because it's the Zealous business opportunity you're offering. You're not offering them your business, you're offering them the business. And there's a huge difference between the business and your business. Do you know the funny thing about it is they don't get into your business, they get into their business. Everybody here is a volunteer. It's a bank holiday weekend in the UK, and people are having barbecues, they're doing all sorts of different things. But you guys have volunteered to be here because you have your reasons, your dreams, your goals, your aspirations. And so from that point of view, that's what people get into, is they get into their dreams, their goals, their aspirations. So what you're actually talking about is where people are now, where they want to be, and how they're going to get there. So in that situation, as you go through that conversation, The starting point is to discuss where they are now. How are you? How's life? How's things going? It's a simple conversation. It's not rejection. It's not nasty. It's not anything. They're either going to ignore you, which a lot of people do, or they're going to answer you and they're going to tell you something about them. They're going to tell you about their life, their situation, or something along those lines. Now, based on what they tell you, they might be very happy with where they are, in which case they don't want to go anywhere. And there's old jokes about this, about helping the old granny across the road, and she never wanted to cross the road in the first place, and all that kind of stuff. You are in a position where you're only helping somebody to go somewhere if they want to go somewhere. So if you put you into it and you want them to go somewhere, then you're going to have resistance because they don't want to go anywhere. But if you don't put you in it and you're figuring out where they want to go, then you won't have the resistance. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, but now you figured out that they want to go somewhere. Now, if they want to go somewhere, they've only got so many options on the table, okay? So a lot of people, because of the pandemic and because of the economic situation, aren't making as much money or don't have as much financial security as they used to have. So they may want to get more money, they may want more financial security, or one of their options is to get a better job, is to get a more secure job in a different industry, because some industries are going to be insecure for a long time, some industries are going to be more secure for a while. So they may want to change that, and that's one of their options, okay? But they may not easily be able to do that because the whole world is in the same boat of needing to do the same thing. So that makes it very difficult for any individual to make that kind of shift. So then they have to look at other options. And what we have is simply an option for them. It's a choice. Now, anybody who has to make a choice about anything needs to make an intelligent choice. They need to actually evaluate that choice correctly. So these people are going to do one or two things. They're either going to evaluate the choice effectively, or they're going to make the decision based on ignorance. Now, if you think of the word is ignorance, to ignore things. So people who make decisions based on ignorance, Genesis style the short mode, it's the people who make the decision based on ignorance, they're in denial. They're in denial of the facts. They're in denial of what the evidence is in front of them, okay? And people do that all the time. We are actually in a Western culture society, in a society that overall likes to deny things, likes to run away and hide from the actual reality of things. So if anything, it's the most likely response you're going to get, that going back to the dog on the nail, they're going to go back to their bottle or go back to their drugs or go back to their gaming or go back to whatever it is that they're hiding in to avoid facing the reality that they're in. And from that point of view, if they are able to step outside of that and actually evaluate the situation, then they'll come along to a Zoom meeting like we have every day. And when they come along to that Zoom meeting, they'll have the opportunity explained to them from their point of view. They'll either like it or they won't, and they'll make an intelligent decision based on the information presented to them. So if they don't get that far, again, it's not because they've rejected you, it's because they've chosen not to go and find out the facts. Maybe because they're too lazy, maybe because they just use ignorance to decide it. It doesn't really matter. The point is, it is not you, that's them. You haven't decided for them, they've decided for them, okay? So it never becomes personal as long as you realize that they're not joining your business for your reasons. If you do try and recruit people into your business for your reasons, I'm sorry to say that that will actually fail, because people will feel like they're working for you. Now, most people don't like the boss they got in the first place. They don't want a second boss. And most people who are going to build this are more freedom-minded, if you like. To some extent, entrepreneurs and people who are business people, people who have their own way of dealing with the world, they don't want to work for somebody else here. So if you set yourself up as you're going to do this for me, that's only going to create resentment, and that's going to create dramas, which is not what we all want. So at the end of the day, the mindset going into it is critical, starting with the end in mind. That person is not getting into my business. I'm showing them the business, and I'm helping them build the business. Okay, I'm not helping them, never helping them build my business. That's a completely wrong way of seeing it. Hopefully that makes sense, and hopefully that takes, it's a simple change of perception that changes everything. And with that, I'm going to hand it back to Christina for a moment. As far as messaging, before I do hand it back to Christina, as far as messaging, the thing to understand is if the paradigm is right, then everything else fits into place. It's not the words you say. So many people want to know what to say. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. You take a genuine interest in a person. You take a genuine interest in where they are and where they want to go. You show them the options on the table. You explain to them that they need to find out for themselves what it's about. You take a genuine interest in that. As you do that, there are certain things you might need to say that are a bit more cliched. You know, you're an intelligent person, so you know you're going to want to make an intelligent decision about this. So I'm guessing you need to find out the full facts. There's a meeting that explains this tomorrow or the day after at 7 o'clock. Which one is best for you? Always a choice of two yeses. Okay. Always give people a choice of two yeses. When you're having conversations with people, again, there's a very simple technique, which is to ask a question, make a comment. So if you're taking an interest in that person, you're asking them something about them or their life or their situation, and then when they answer that, you comment about it and you discuss it, and then you open up into another question from there, and you lead it from question to question to question. And all of that is really just unfolding what they want to achieve out of life. Okay, your overall goal is to get them to see the business. That's the goal. Every conversation is to some extent unique because every person's unique. So it's tailored. There are templated things you can say, but you've always got to change those to match the individual person and the individual set of circumstances. That personalization is critical. But the goal is always the same. You're always starting with that end in mind. Every time you're doing it. So what's best for you? Tomorrow or the day after? What's best for you? Tuesday or Wednesday? What's best for you? Thursday or Friday? What's best for you? And you always want to get them into the next available opportunity. That's why we have an opportunity virtually every day. Because if you talk to somebody today, get them into something today or tomorrow. We don't tend to do anything on a Sunday, but outside of that, Monday through Saturday, there's an opportunity for them to see this any day of the week. So any day of the week you speak to someone and they show an interest, what's best for you today or tomorrow? And you get them into one of those two. Hopefully that makes sense to everybody. I hand it back to you at that stage, Christine.
And you've been very attentive, and it's coming up on the hour, but I'm going to cover a few final points, and then I'm actually going to spend a little bit of time with Marie after and answer some of the questions because she's new. But the point you made here, Abdullah, was absolutely superb. They have a problem and you have a solution. It's a nice way of seeing it, and I said that it's very diagnostic, but it's true. It's all about matching that need. As long as it's going to match towards what we've got, and that is the correct match, then yes, you're actually helping them fulfill that need. And so that's a really good point. And I actually wanted to acknowledge that because you took the time to write it out here. You know, even if people reject you, then you still have the solution. You come away with whatever it is that you've got, and you can hand it to somebody else. And that's a healthy attitude, because you know, it's like having a problem or illness. You've made that as an analogy. You're actually helping people with that. And even with your customers and clients, you've still got the cookie in the sense that you know how to fix them with their problems. So I rather like that. So I wanted to share that, guys, because actually Abdullah made a rather nice point there. And, we've got other things here. I was talking to Gareth, and I'm going to use you, Gareth, because you've been very, very good, and you're super like that. Now, he's put me in a three-way for the first time, looking at a few prospects of people who might be interested in this opportunity. A couple of them are teachers and bits and pieces, and he's a teacher, English teacher. And so when I looked at those people, I can see that they haven't asked a lot of questions. People who ask questions, by the way, are interested. People who do not ask questions are not interested. They're just shooting the breeze. They're bored, they're looking at you, they're doing whatever they do. I know Zach's due in the waiting room. Can somebody just drop him a line a second? And so for me, it's all about, he's being punctual now because he messed us around, which leads me to another point. This Zach is a lovely chap, and he runs a very important business. Okay, he's a very important person. But he wanted to put his posture over us. Oh, you have to fit in with my schedule. I'm only available at this time. And we said, no. We can't be doing that. We've got a schedule and a life of our own. We know you're an important person, but my posture is I'm doing what I'm doing, and you need to fit in with us as well. Okay. Posture is actually keeping control. People use it far, far too much. Control doesn't mean you bully people. Control means you put them where you need to put people within reason. Most people are accommodating, by the way. Most people are all right, especially if you treat them with respect, okay? So, we've covered a lot tonight. It's been a lot about those things. Use your 2 yeses, ask questions. If somebody's asking you questions, it's not a bad thing, okay? Most of us avoid it because we think, oh my gosh. If you know somebody, they'll come along anyway, which is your point, Gareth, and they will come on faith. Marie and Vivian know each other very, very well. And Vivian's taking a look at it. Marie's taking a look at it because Vivian has endorsed it, and that's excellent. And, if you've got people like that, then obviously you've got a nice rapport. But I mean, we've covered a lot. I don't like to overdo these things, as they tend to boggle people. And Nick, I can see a hand up. So yeah, so you're going to say.
When you're closing every conversation, a skill to learn more than any other single skill is to promote the next event. So drawing commitment out of people, closing, that's all it is. The path of mutual discovery is the next step is, the next step is, the next step is. When you use SatNav, it doesn't take you from where you live to Paris in one go. It takes you there, to left here, to right there, do this here, do that there. If you do that, you end up in Paris, but you didn't plan the journey that far ahead. And so it's always the next step. So using our lovely Marie as an example, her next step is to be on the Zoom on Monday nights. Okay. And so all you do is take people to the next step, and they learn a bit more, and then you take them to the next step and they learn a bit more. And the more they learn, the more they like it. The more they like it, the more they feel good about it. And the more they feel good about it, the more they want to take it forward themselves. It's actually a very simple process, if that makes sense to everybody. On that note, we'll probably need to wrap this.